topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hi, this is Shelby Wagner, and I am the author and host of this show called Learning to Dance in the Rain. Pastor Carl is with me today, and we're going to bring us have a conversation about love again. Love, making love last. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind you that I have a book, Learning to Dance in the Rain. That's on Amazon.com. You can get it in ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. So take a look at that. We're going to be referring to some of the things in that today, the statements that I made. And I wrote a book about scams to help you recognize them and not lose your money. And the third one, I just got up last Friday. And the third one is Finding Love Again. Finding Love Again. It is a senior's guide to online dating. And this is, of course, Finding Love Again. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about making our love last once we find it, right, Carl? But this one goes into what happens when that first love ends through death or whatever, or lost love. And we're hoping to save some of those loves today. But anyway, that one is available now in ebook. It will be available in paperback in a couple weeks. But
congratulations, Shelby! I didn't know you just finished publishing another book.
Oh,
that's terrific.
Working, yeah.
Finding love again. Finding love again.
Yeah, finding.
Oh, that's again. Wow. That's wonderful. Good news. Good.
So put some of my expertise to work there. I have been on the dating sites on and off of them for 6 years before I found one that lasts.
Right.
So not sure. Anyway, so can we start maybe with how do I know if I'm in love? We talked about this, I think, once before, but how do we know if it's real love? And in the first book that I wrote, I had some things to help you remember. That said that you really like that person and you want to be with them all the time. You want your family and your friends to like them, and you celebrate their triumphs, even if you yourself have had a bad day. You really miss that person when you're not together. Your sense of self has grown through knowing them. I used to think, oh yeah, my husband and I, when we were dating, we were better people when we were together. I think that's true of someone that you are in love with.
You want to present your best self when this is a person that's really blessing you and caring for you. You want to offer the best of yourself to them in return.
Right. I've read several different ones. It's you want to make them happy. And you do the best that you can to do that, to make each other happy. You don't make them yourself happy by doing whatever they don't like. You have to have a conversation about that, right?
Right.
So let's see. How do you know if that man really loves you? The way he looks at you, he wants to give to you, he treats you like a priority. When he says he's going to call you at 5 o'clock and he doesn't, maybe that's a red flag. So that's something to remember. He wants a be with you and immerse himself in your life. He really sees you. He loves the things about you. Your happiness is as important to him as his own. And he misses you when you're apart. He keeps you in the loop. He's there for you when it's inconvenient. He doesn't give up on you, and you don't worry how he feels. You just know. So if you're mad, and how do you know if she's being true, if she really loves you? And that is, she support your passions. She wants to get to know your friends. She's pleasant with your family. She compliments you all the time. She's passionate about you. She's patient with you. She's eager to discuss the future with you. She openly communicates with you. Your arguments are had with the idea of fixing the issue. Doesn't try to change you. Her friends have taken an interest in you. She's not judgmental toward you at all. She compromises you, and you just feel it. What do you think? Are those good ideas?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so, all right, we know that this person, or we think this person, truly loves us.
Right.
But okay, some things happen. How come we fall? There's a song says, "I don't love you anymore."
Oh no.
Out there on the country charts. Trey Seconds, I think.
Oh.
I don't love you anymore. How does that
Oh
happen,
no.
Carl? How does that happen?
Well, I think kind of a ordinarily a benign neglect, especially if it's a long married relationship, a long coupling relationship. You get into the middle years, especially if household concerns are there, children have entered into the picture, work and finances. There's a lot of practical things that kind of wear down the loving relationship, or the you lost that loving feeling, as
Right,
the Righteous Brothers and that sort of thing.
right.
And so it's just being worn down by the daily grind of life, and you don't have the time for beautiful romantic moments and that sort of thing. But hopefully, the functioning of your relationship is going well. Hopefully, all aspects of satisfactions are present and that sort of thing. That's what helps maintain. But sometimes, in the push and shove and the priorities that enter into life, that sometimes that married relationship or that relationship with that special person somehow gets neglected, and that person doesn't that your top priority anymore, and suddenly there's other issues and crises that are pressing in, and so there can become some dissatisfactions that can creep in, some resentments perhaps. I think resentment is a kind of a yellow flag. It's kind of an early warning sign, like oh, there he goes again, or oh, she's harping on that all over again. Boy, oh boy, what am I going to do? These small aggravations, when they're neglected and they're repeated, end up being some pretty great kind of chasms that it's going to be difficult to be able to leap over them or to bridge over them. So I think kind of a benign neglect. We just didn't really notice it happening, but it happened. And how serious is it? Is it really breaking down the relationship, the bonds of the relationship? Is it breaking down the marriage? Or is it something that can be repaired and brought back together? But I think benign neglect is the starting point of that anyway. But just the pressures of life push in on us, and then we've neglected one another and feeling distant from one another.
So what do we do about it? I guess that's the title of our show today, Making Love Last. What do we do about it?
Well, I
prevent it. from
I don't know
happening?
about prevent. I think in my own experience, it was like noticing it was there, and being uncomfortable with it, but having the desire to fix it, to wanting to be able to draw closer to one another again. There were some things that when Jerry and I were first married, we pledged that somehow, some way, throughout the day, we would say "I love you" 7 times every day.
Oh.
That was a little bit unrealistic, because after a while it just gets boring. At the end of the day, I realized I only said it twice, so you got to say it 5 times before you go to bed. I love you. I love you. I love you. We get all caught up here. And actually, just saying "I love you" gets boring after a while. I think we have to look for ways to demonstrate that we love one another, taking some positive actions, and maybe doing something that ordinarily isn't in your wheelhouse. I know that still, I believe, probably, though, in married relationships, married couples, both of them are probably working full time to be able to support the household and the family. And but typically, I believe what happens is that when husband and wife come home at the end of the day, that the wife is stuck with the domestic duties and the husband is usually not quite as involved. Well, guys, maybe what we ought to be doing if we want to express our love is to get in the kitchen, and maybe there's a recipe, or maybe there's a simple supper that you can put out, produce, maybe once a week you could, or twice a week, you could kind of relieve your wife of some of those duties, or surprise your bride by getting up and say, "I'll do the dishes tonight. Thank you for dinner. It was wonderful. Let me do the dishes." And, showing some involvement in a place or in an area or a way that we perhaps had neglected before. Really putting yourself out and giving a little bit extra, doing a little more, and trying to ease the burden that your partner has felt. And there might be other ways that women, that you might want to be looking for ways to connect. And to me, it's looking for ways to say "I love you" without saying those words, but expressing it in a different way. Being creative, sometimes being funny. I like to make my wife laugh, and sometimes I come in with a goofy love song and sing it and ham it up and that sort of thing. And sometimes I'll get a serious song, like I love the Unchained Melody, and sometimes I'll just have that on my phone and come in and start it playing. And of course, now my wife is mostly bedbound and she doesn't get out of the bedroom very much. So what I like to do is 2 or 3 times in an evening come in and just check in on her. Is there anything you need? What can I do for you? Say "I love you" in a creative way or a silly way, or have a song like that and just play it through, and let that be my expression. So I'm always looking for a different kind of way to express my love to my bride. And I think that's the tricky part. How do we be creative about that, to keep that loving connection fresh? To me, that's key in keeping that love alive.
I'm writing this down.
Oh.
Be creative and constantly
Looking for fresh ways.
looking for fresh ways to express your love.
Right.
Right. Okay.
I remember early on in our relationship, Jerry and I both agreed that if there was something that needed to be done in the house, that Jerry would be doing that. If there was something that needed to be done outside of the house, like working on the car, yard, mowing the lawn, or shoveling the snow, or whatever it takes, that would be my job. But I noticed that her job was constant. It was every day, a few times of the day, and mine was maybe once a day, or only once a week, or once every 3 months when I had to change the oil or something like that. And so it really wasn't a fair deal. She had a whole lot more to do than I did. And that was a realization that it was kind of an unfair burden on Jerry. You know, the hardest part for her, I remember in our middle years when the children were young, that the hardest part for Jerry was just figuring out what are we going to have for supper.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she knew what was in the cupboard, what was in the kitchen, and that sort of thing. But making that decision, she really hated doing that. And so the first little steps was, well, what do we have? And getting involved in, you know, that was nice too, because then I got to, if there was something I liked especially, I'd kind of steer us in that direction, you know. So that was all right. But that was the first step in getting more active in the kitchen for me. I've always felt like a fish out of water when it comes to kitchen work. You know, obviously I haven't ever starved to death. I know how to fix my own breakfast and I can make a light lunch and that sort of thing. But getting 2 or 3 dishes together, they're all hot and ready to go at the same moment, where you got to start something early because that takes longer. Planning that stuff, that's that boggles my mind. I don't know how you can get it all done. The one thing is finishing up, and the other thing, the first thing was burned. by the time you got it, I don't get that. So I've always felt awkward in the kitchen, and it was very difficult for me to say, look, I know how to do this. Let me do. I'll do this meal tonight. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So some things come easier for us guys than others. But I think maybe it's even appreciated more when they know that this is really out of our wheelhouse, and we're really trying hard to do this for our loved one. So, and then it's maybe perhaps probably even more appreciated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So you brought up page 134.
Yeah.
Questions.
The questions.
Yeah.
They caught my eye. And, you know, I think some of these questions, well, most of these questions are designed for couples that are just coming to know one another. And, but some of them, I think, bear repeating even later on in life. We think we know our partner. We think we know what she or he might be thinking or how they might answer, but we might be surprised. And the first question is, how important is it to you to be faithful? And I know, you know, I have absolute rock solid confidence in my wife's faithfulness to me. But it might be interesting just to hear her express this, why this is coming from her heart, out of her lifetime experience, and her sense of importance and priorities in life. To hear her say that, I think that would be refreshing, even at this later stage in our relationship. Would you say that you have a type, and do I fit that type? I'd hate to find out that I wasn't really her type, but it happened anyway. But that'd be an interesting conversation too.
Yes,
I had a type, but you came along, so I said, "Oh well," she settled for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, we change over the years too.
I think so. Yep.
I mean, we think we don't, but we must. We mature. So
right.
Yeah.
Things that were important to us when we were young and in love, and our sexual drives were stronger and that sort of thing. Later in life, you know, some of those things are still present, but certainly not on the hot burner. And so it's something that just simmers at the back of the stove, more or less. And so what is it really that becomes more important to us, you know?
Right. Well, I have that theory that maybe
Really
that passing, you know, once that passionate feeling and sexual desire or whatever weakens, and that's when some of them get anxious and start wandering.
Right. That happened to a close friend of mine. He was in the Navy, and he was in submarine service, and he would be gone for 6 months at a time and home for 6 months. And what he found out was that while he was away, his wife had another sailor coming in and living with her in his own home with his own children. Terrible. And so they tried to repair the situation. They went to marriage counseling, and the marriage counselor finally turned to my friend and said, what she's really after is that brand new experience, that hot, passionate love of a brand new relationship that's never been explored before. She's always looking for the next new lover. And so she was really not a homemaker, a homebody, and content to sit at the fireside with her husband kind of person. And the marriage counselor said, and it's unlikely that she'll ever change. Well, that was the end of that marriage. So
I have a friend that's kind of similar type of thing. I mean, his wife had already been divorced once when they got married.
Okay.
And it wasn't a problem because he also had been through a divorce. So that,
Okay.
but the thing is, 5 years later, she wants a divorce. And the thing is that now that's all played out over the last 6, 8 years, well, 8 years.
Right.
And she's been, during that 8 years, she's been married 4 times that we know.
Oh my. I was
So
looking for that new thrilling excitement of
that's what
falling in love.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That must be it.
That thrill. They want the thrill.
Right. So, but you know, you can keep that thrill if you really love your partner and you make up your mind, decide that you know, this is it. Then you work towards fixing it, or like you say, creating new ways to find.
Or, you know, you gave me a thought just as you were speaking there, Shelby, excuse me, that you know what it is that especially excites your partner. You know what she wants the most. You understand how he is made up, and to deliberately choose to love your husband, your wife, your partner in that particular way, I think that would be particularly helpful, creative, exciting, and kind of help to restore that spark that perhaps was kind of not quite as strong as it had been, but to choose to do the very thing that you know, especially your partner, your husband, your wife, really, really appreciates. It's kind of like that. What is the 5 love languages? For basic relationship information, we ought to know what it is that is our partner's love language, and be able to speak that fluently for them, to show them again and again and again, you are the one, you are the only one, and I know that this pleases you the most, and this is why I choose to do this for you now. Yep. Knowing your partner's love language.
Right. It's hard to remember that.
Yeah. And all the you know, the ordinariness of every day. Oh, here we go again. I've got this. I've got all these responsibilities and all these different appointments, and today's going to be very, very full. And I'm going to come home tired. And what am I going to do? And out of all that. Oh, and I want to spend some special time with my loved one. Also, that's hard to do.
That reminds me that I read a long time ago, you know, affirmation, but you can, what was it? The woman, she would fix his lunch, and he would put a little card with a note in it about something to spur some feelings or reminders or whatever. So that's a good idea.
Right.
I mean,
what I especially appreciate about you.
Right. Or that brings up one thing that was suggested in several of the books is gratitude.
Gratitude.
Right.
Expressing
exactly gratitude. Right. Regularly saying thank you for the small and the big
Mm-hmm.
things that
Mm-hmm.
your partner does that shows
Yeah.
appreciation and reinforces love. I kind of, my husband, because I was playing the organ and the piano and the singing and the directing of the choirs and all this. And I did this and I substitute taught for a few years. So everywhere we would go, there'd be somebody, oh, hi, Shelby,
Oh yeah.
And so, he said one day, well, you're always getting praise. Every, Sunday, somebody's going to say, oh, gee, they enjoyed your music or whatever. You're always getting praise. He says, I don't ever get any praise. I don't
Wow.
remember even getting praise from my parents when I was growing up.
Huh.
And I thought, oh, gee, that's a real shame. So I tried to start, giving more gratitude and more thank you
Right. Those
to
giving him those
realize
affirmations.
that, hey,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the affirmations. And so that's why I guess I remember that one about the woman putting the notes in the lunchbox.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
how about a note in the refrigerator? So everybody opens it up. Get creative.
Yeah. It
Mm.
just it's just a note on the refrigerator that says, "You're my favorite cheesecake."
You like cheesecake, Carl?
Well, I once upon a time did, but with my diabetes, I know I can have it. I can go ahead and enjoy it. I can go ahead and eat it. Just depends on how sick I want to be tomorrow. So oftentimes I
Yeah.
remind myself when I stop. But boy, cheesecake was always a real treat. Boy, rich, wonderful, sweet food. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, you can't go wrong with that.
Oh yeah, mine's ice cream.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, well, number 4 was kind of interesting for me. Do you believe in soulmates?
I'd be interested in your answer, Shelby. I'm not sure. I'm not. No, let me guess that you would say yes, that you believe in soulmates. Am I correct or wrong?
Well, I never thought of that too much till I was on the dating sites, and I would see I'm looking for a soulmate,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I thought, oh, really, a soulmate?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Bob and I were together 50 years.
Yeah.
Was that a
Does that
soulmate?
count for does that count for something as far as the soulmate scorecard?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that is how a person describes the person that they think they want.
I was counseling a man in one of my first parishes, and he was really looking for an excuse to follow his heart. He'd been married, and he and his wife had a child together. She was, I think, in junior high at that point when he and I started counseling together. But there was somebody else, not his wife, somebody else that he was truly in love with. And
Mhm.
the way he expressed it was, "This person is my wife, but this other woman is my soulmate." And I think he was
Hmm.
wanting me to give him the stamp of approval. The pastor said this is okay. Oh, I understand. You can be married, but you can have a soulmate. But I kept thinking that it was really a form of unfaithfulness to his wife. That there were marriage vows that were involved here, and promises that he had made to this woman who should have priority in his life. And yet he was looking for that passionate love, that puppy love kind of, where your heart just goes pit-a-pat and that sort of thing, and deep sighs and whatever that emotional rush is about the first moments of that felt love. He wanted that again, and I just couldn't give that to him. We continued that counseling for at least a couple of years, and we finally just stopped doing it because it wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't going to give him permission, and he wasn't getting what he wanted, so we finally just stopped doing it. But
Mhm.
to me, that's an interference. Now, how wonderful is it when you discover someone that you consider your soulmate, and you develop that relationship, and then you get married, marry your soulmate. Well, apparently you just won the grand prize. But I think it's a little complicating language when we discover a soulmate, somebody who's outside of our marriage. I think
Well,
that's more describing a dissatisfaction than it is an attraction.
well, Yolanda has written a question. What is your definition of a soulmate?
Huh.
And then someone else wrote, is a soulmate different for different people, or should it be the same for all?
Oh, I'm sure it's different. Absolutely different. I mean,
Does soulmate change as life goes on? Well, my definition of a soulmate is the one that you feel attracted to, that you
right.
feel comfortable with, you have
Okay.
similar goals and values, and compatible.
Compatibility.
Everything seems to
Comfortable
fit.
together. You're comfortable
Right.
in one another's presence. They're not feeling a sense of awkwardness. Why isn't he talking to me? Or any kind of, it's just whether you're in communication or whether you're in silence, it's completely, you're at ease with one another. You're comfortable with
Right.
one another.
So is that same as your definition, or
Well,
were
I
you
never,
thinking it was a mistress?
I never really thought of my love life or seeking a love partner or a life partner in terms of soulmate before. I really, even though I counseled my parishioner that those many long years ago about that, I never really tried to apply it to my life.
I think I was always looking for the one, or the spark. I never
All
thought of
right.
that as being as a soulmate. And my friend said, one of my friends says, "Well, oh, that's just lust, Shelby. You're looking at the wrong thing, the spark."
Well,
And I,
yeah,
no, I didn't think
you,
so.
you intended something more than just a lustful kind of
Right, right. I
oh,
wanted the
he's
whole
hot,
package.
and I'm ready to trot kind of
No,
thing.
no, no,
No,
no.
no, no.
That's
That
not
was not what,
spark.
that was not your priority. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But
here's the difference. Perhaps you've noticed that you're a woman and I'm a man, but when I was looking, I was always looking. Men, we're visual, and we're looking for that that hot young thing that excites us and that sort of thing. That's the beginning point for us. And so I'm afraid, for me as a man, the beginning point was always visual lust and visual interest and that sort of thing. And so that's a tough place to begin when you know that that's not going to last. I've been told the Amish have a saying, kissing don't last, but good cooking do. So after a while, passion's cool after the first number of years and that sort of thing. And so for men, that's going to be an awkward transition. I know it was for me, myself, that, we have to discover, well, what is the real basis? If it's not physical love, if it's not physical passion that lasts, then what is the basis for our love? And so for me, and I'm just assuming many other men like myself, there has to come a time of transition where we've discovered the beauty in our partner, not in their physical attributes or their ability to return passion to us, but more in their spiritual side, more in their intellectual side, more in their creative side. So I think I think of soulmate as kind of a poetic kind of thing. I was not much of a poet. I was not much of a poet. And so I really didn't, that was not my life search. I've got to find my soulmate. I've got to find my soulmate. It really wasn't part of my vocabulary.
right.
But,
Somebody that oh golly, I forgot the term already.
uh-oh.
Compatible. Are you
Compa-
compatible? And
compatible.
yeah, do you have the same values? Do you have this strong feeling for each other? You want to make them happy.
Right.
I don't know
Right.
if you're
Right.
looking for a soulmate. I think that's like looking for perfection,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're not
I
going to.
I
Now,
appreciate what
some
you
people
say.
will
That makes sense.
say,
That makes sense. Perfection, Shelby, what you just said, that makes sense to me. That phrase, that terminology, that
I
soulmate.
mean, you have the spark, you have the desire, you want to be with that person all the time, and you think you're in love, and you agree, maybe a lot of the time, or at least are able to talk about your differences and resolve whatever
Right.
issues come up.
Right.
If I think of a soulmate, I'm not going to have a fight with them ever. He's always going to agree with me, and
Oh,
it just doesn't. It
somebody's
just
in
doesn't.
for a bad a letdown,
It just
and
isn't going
probably
to
sooner
happen.
than later.
Right, right. Now, someone says, is it different for each person? I think it is different for each person. I mean,
Right.
everybody's unique. Everybody is different. You have different desires, different wants, different goals, different values.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
it's going to be different for every person. It's not
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that's a form that you fit in. Another one, Jean has says, does the soulmate change as life goes on? Well,
I would say so, especially
we
for
all do.
I've changed, and so
Mhm.
the what I've discovered that is the lasting and most important aspects of our relationship. That means they've changed. That this suddenly what was never very important before now is of utmost importance. So yeah, and
Definitely.
fulfilling that the ideal has changed, and now it's more of an ethereal, it's more of an intellectual, it's more of a ideal,
That mature love that we were talking
mature love. Thank
about.
you.
Right.
Thank you. Well said. Yep. Yep.
What about this next one? What about love at first sight? Do you believe in love at first sight?
Yeah, I do.
Do
I
you?
do. Yeah, that's more of a literary term for me. It was not for Jerry and I. It was not love at first sight. uh, it's a she'll tell you this story. The night that we met, I was not impressed. It was a night. It was a gathering for college students to get together, college age students to get together, and there was this little girl that was there, and she was quite annoying to me. And I thought, this little girl, this is late. This little girl needs to be in bed. And who's her mother? Oh, that's her mother. Well, that was Jerry and her daughter Leslie. That was
Uh,
my first introduction, and I just thoroughly disapproved of that little girl being up late, and disapproved of this mother that allowed this little child to be up late. Little did I know that that was part of their lifestyle before, previously, because in Jerry's first marriage, she was married to a rock and roll musician, and
oh,
the late night lifestyle was everything, because that's when they were up and going. They were traveling to different venues, and the band was playing through the night. They were getting home in the wee hours of the morning, and this little girl was a part of it all. So her being up at 9, 10 o'clock at night and everything, that was just normal kind of life that she'd grown up with. So no, that was not love at first sight. But the thing that saved us was that our mutual friend, who it was a setup, and I didn't know it or realize it, and I didn't pick up on it on that night. Our mutual friend said to Jerry, "Now Carl's not going to call you; he's too shy." And our friend was right; I wasn't going to call. And so Jerry called me and asked me to our first date, and I was just so flattered and kind of um, I wouldn't say ecstatic, but I remember hanging up the phone after the conversation. I was walking across my apartment floor, and I thought, "You're walking on air, boy." So that's what got my attention. Her interest in me, and being an introvert and very shy, I was not likely to take the lead. So that's the beginning point. So love at first sight, no, certainly was not in
I like
Jerry's and my case.
4
Um,
weeks, 4 weeks after I met my my husband of 50 years. 4 weeks after I met him, he announced an engagement with another woman. So it was
Oh
definitely not first love.
no! Well, that sounds complicated.
Well, yeah, it was quite a surprise when I learned a few months later that they had broken up, and he then just turned to me and looked at, I want to get to know Shelby better. But don't you think it? I don't know. There are people that claim I knew the minute I saw her that I was going to marry her. Well,
Mhm.
Rick's mom and dad. I think she was new to the class, the school they'd moved into, or somewhere, but he saw her at school, and he walked over to her and he says, "I'm going to marry you someday."
Oh wow!
Can you imagine? I don't know.
Well,
They
I've
were,
heard of such a thing, but
yeah,
I've never had that
yeah.
absolute
Well, I've
dead
read it in
certainty
books,
about it all.
it's so romantic that, oh wow, but
But it happens to be true. I mean,
I
these things
I
have
guess it
happened,
does.
and people do report that's exactly how it started.
Mhm. Well, there's an interest, or we wouldn't go out on a date in the first place, or we
Exactly.
would start talking.
Exactly.
There has to be an interest there, but
Exactly. That
whether I
spark
would
was
call that first
immediately
love
there.
at first sight,
Yeah.
you may have been rejected a lot by others, and so you're not
Right.
gonna just look at somebody and say, "Well, that's the one," and because there've been maybe a few rejections before that. So,
Right.
uh,
Right.
I
And
like,
that was my experience when I was in the military in the early 70s, and I had the military haircut. And any girl that, if I was at a bar or a dance or something like that, if I asked them to dance, I got told no. And that's what made me gun shy. I just got tired of that. It was really, you can only be rejected so many times before you give up on it. Well, that's not going to work, huh? You know? So,
well, you want to talk about this other question? What about friends becoming lovers?
well, I think that's a very natural progression. Is isn't that the progression of all the Hallmark movies?
Oh no, they're always fighting.
Yeah, well, it doesn't start with
There's
friendship. It
always
starts
a
with
conflict, Yeah.
annoyance.
Who do you think you are?
Who is this annoying person, and why
Right?
is she saying this, and why is
Yeah.
he doing this, and that sort of thing. Yeah, it doesn't start with friendship, but friendship is that, first there's that annoyance, and then there's an acceptance, and then there's a kind of an appreciation, and then a friendship, and friends turning into lovers. I honestly believe that that's probably the majority of all these friendships. Well, I think of all serious relationships, that friends become something more later on. Yep.
But there is another side to that,
Okay.
and that is just maybe if you are friends and you already are getting intimate, but you don't think you love each other.
All right. Yeah. And I'm afraid that happens more than we can figure for, which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate, that the physical comes in before the spiritual or the intellectual, or we're so hot to trot that we haven't developed this relationship, and we haven't really found out, is this someone that can be my friend, or is this someone that I'm really compatible with? Or you find out later on, after you've made that very serious commitment of physical intimacy, that this person is exactly the opposite of what you could possibly live with. And now you got problems, that one wants to continue this physical relationship, and one wants to end it. Room for conflict there. We get the cart before the horse. There needs to be a natural progression. Friends, um, drawing closer, becoming more personally intimate before physically intimate, and becoming more sure about my new partner's characteristics and the qualities, and becoming even more attracted to them, and finding out that you are compatible, you have similar outlooks on life and living in the world and politics and finances and things like that, because those are the wedges that can destroy a relationship, that you don't see eye to eye, and how our mutual income is to be spent, or priorities, or I think it's possible for a Democrat and a Republican to get married, but I see some room for some real conflict there. But you know, you hate to find out that someone is completely opposite of you on any of these other important areas of life, and you've already made that physical commitment. Makes it more difficult. You know, there's guilt involved. Well, I already started this. I don't think I can stop this now. I already made this commitment. How do I back out now?
Mhm.
It's really very conflict
Mhm.
filled.
And if one feels stronger and the other thinks the other one doesn't, maybe one of them thinks they're falling in love with, but the
Right,
other hasn't even thought of it. You got
right,
a
right,
conflict there too,
right, right. Or
and
you're discovering that you've made a commitment, a physical commitment to somebody that is ultimately you finding out is a narcissist, and
Mhm.
they will never love you.
Mm.
They will
Mm.
never commit to you. It's all about them and what they want. That's the only thing that matters, you know. And you find that out too late, and
Mhm.
now how do you get out of that kind
Right.
of? You find out this person has some really strong interpersonal flaws,
Mhm.
but you've already made a serious commitment. That's a dangerous situation. That's going to be very difficult to
Right.
extract yourself from that. So, you
Right.
know, it really, really, really means you got to be very careful before you start making those next steps in the relationship.
Let's see, 4 minutes. Okay, we got to bring this down around. Do you want to continue to talk about this in 2 weeks when you come back on the
Well,
first?
I'd like to. I was really interested in those resource books that you had, and I thought maybe we could make a shift over into sealing the deal. You know, if we're this,
Okay.
I like that title. Both of
Uh,
those books. What say those book titles
yeah,
again?
I was saying both of them help take back,
Sealing the
take you
deal.
back into why you feel the way you do because of
Okay,
something
okay,
that happened way 50 years ago. You
right.
know,
What was formative for you
right. So
is
Sealing the
so.
Deal, this is by psychologist Dr. Diana Kirshner. And she says she always wanted to write a book about making love last, physical love, passionate love last. And so that
Wow,
I
I
found
think
that
that would be
put
worth
on my
looking into.
bookshelf. Another one I would is Loving What Is by Byron Katie with Stephen Mitchell. And this one has 4 questions that you have to answer, and it solves all your problems.
Solves all your problems. Well,
Well,
if somebody
maybe
reads
that's
that book, they won't need our advice anymore, Shelby. We'll be out of
right,
business. We'll be out of
right.
business.
But it's yellow pages. I mean, it looks older. So I looked, see, well, it was copyright in 2002. So, but four questions. What does she say? 4 questions that can change your life. That's what she says.
Two
That's
weeks from now, let's
do take a
you
look at
lead the
those.
discussion. You lead the discussion in those
Okay.
resources.
All
I'll
right. I
follow
want to
along.
say, yeah, we're going to say goodbye to the audience. We hope you'll come back next week. Next week, I'm going to be doing some reading from my book, Finding Love Again, my new book there. And so we'll be carrying conversations on for 3 weeks about love. Well, that sounds like a good idea.
Sure
Please.
does.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope we got all the questions answered. And I hope that you'll be back next week, Tuesday at noon. And remember that life is not about learning waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. So that's what we're going to talk about some more. Thank
Thanks,
you and
Shelby. Thank
goodbye.
you. Thank you.
I